At least 30 people are dead in the latest air raid by government forces in Syria. It happened in the rebel-held town of Douma. That's just outside the capital of Damascus. Now, the town has seen more than 50 air raids in just the past 24 hours. And there are reports of people suffocating from poison gas attacks. International human rights groups think the airstrikes by Syrian and Russian troops are targeting the Syrian people and not rebel forces. No more signing at checkout. You know that scribble that you do real quick? Beginning this month, credit card companies will stop requiring you to sign your name when using a credit card. Now, the old security measure, it's been around for decades, but who really sits there and signs out their name? But the recent move to chip readers has basically made credit card fraud much more difficult. David Lee Miller explains.
Do you have a photo ID with your signature, sir?
It's the end of an era, but one that few people seem to notice. Beginning this month, signatures will no longer be required when using a security chip-enabled credit card. Phasing out signatures gradually began 2 years ago when chip technology was introduced. The use of chip cards significantly reduced fraud because they are difficult to counterfeit. Many merchants and the credit card industry say signature authentication, which has been used for decades, increased waiting time at the cash register and did little to prevent unauthorized transactions.
It is somewhat of a tradition, right? I mean, we think that we assign value to a signature. We think that there's some sort of legitimacy to signing a receipt. In reality, it's just not a robust form of security.
Signature authentication has been replaced by technology. Unusual spending patterns and transaction locations are red flags. But some retailers say more needs to be done to prevent fraud and want U.S. credit cards, much like those in Europe, to require the use of a PIN.
The reason the use of a PIN is effective is that, in theory, only you know your PIN. Even if a credit card is stolen, there's nothing on that card that indicates what the PIN is.
The credit card industry in the U.S. has resisted using PINs, citing cost and concern consumers won't adopt to the system. Some experts say PIN security is outdated and that fingerprints and facial recognition are the next and best way to prevent credit card fraud. In New York, David Lee Miller, Fox News.
David Lee Miller, thank you very much. A kayak fishing trip started normal enough for two guys, but then one of them hooked on to a pretty massive haul. We have more amazing video from their biggest catch ever.
A bad day of fishing beats a good day of anything else. Play that guitar.
Two men make a monster catch while fishing.
Oh my God! Are you? Hey, holy!
That sounds like me in the commercial breaks. The men from Idaho caught a huge sturgeon while kayak fishing on Snake River. They say it took them nearly an hour to reel it in. The giant fish measuring 8 feet long, almost 2 feet longer than average. The men released the fish back into the water after snapping some pictures. They said it was an bleeping awesome experience, is sure what I'm saying. All right, that's how Fox reports this Saturday, April 7th, 2018. I'm Julie Banderas. Later.
Democrats in Congress are doing everything in their power to undermine immigration enforcement. I will not rest until we have secured our borders and restored the rule of law.
Let's get the Republicans behind this president. Give him what he needs. We will secure the border, and it's over.
At least one person is dead after a raging apartment fire on the 50th floor of Trump Tower in New York City. 4 firefighters suffered minor injuries, including 2 with burns.
President Trump blasting the DOJ and FBI, slow walking. What is going on? Bad.
They gave us absolutely nothing. The president's right to be frustrated. I'm frustrated, but you know what? Enough with the talk.
Final poll here. The Masters of the Closet, Fox and Friends. Will it be Ed? Will it be Pete?
Go. Oh my! Do I have to make this? All right. Watch it, Pete.
This is too good.
I don't know what to say.
Did you sleep at all last night, Ed?
I was so excited about this victory. It's almost like the Sunday of the Masters, when you're in the lead and you wake up Sunday morning, I'm the leader at the Masters. I gotta keep it. There's so much nervous energy, but in this case, I actually won. So
you did.
I can't lose now. Whereas Patrick Reed is in the lead, came from nowhere, he's from Texas. People are rooting for him because he's a Cinderella story. But he could blow it today.
That's exactly how people think about Pete. We asked the crowd on the plaza yesterday, who do you think will win? And almost unanimously, it was all for Pete. And then after the first putt, they all went to Ed.
I know.
Yeah, and I didn't want to rub it in, so I wore a green tie. The whole tradition at the Masters with the green.
Didn't want to rub it in, so
I wore a tie. I didn't want to.
Pete,
a jacket would be over the top.
Listen, I thought it was a gimme putt. I felt good about it, and there you go. Nothing.
You stabbed at it.
I stabbed at it. But you nailed I got to give it to you, a clutch putt the hole before to bring it into overtime.
I don't know about this. You have some green on.
Yeah, just a little. I didn't want to overdo it.
But the Masters are today, and the ultimate symbol of success, because you won our Masters here at Fox and Friends,
that green jacket.
is the green jacket. And I think you need to wear this green jacket throughout the show today.
Well, that would be rubbing it in.
For yourself, but also to remind Pete of what
Wait, is there a green jacket? Oh, my gosh. Wait.
No. Pete's got to put it on.
I think Pete should put it
on.
on.
Do I have to put it on, Ed? Oh, my goodness.
Can we have some music?
Is there any?
Ed, you've earned this.
Is there one shining moment?
I feel like your whole life has led up to this point. Does it fit right?
Oh, yeah.
We had it measured for you?
Wow. Accidentally. It turns out that it actually, wow.
Nice.
Ed, you earned it, brother. You earned it.
I think I'm just going to wear it.
If I'd known a jacket was in play, I might have lined that putt up a little bit more directly.
It's Masters Sunday, so I'm going to wear it.
Look at this. He's planned his tie and his hanky around the jacket.
Oh, wait, maybe it wasn't. Wait, there was a hanky in here.
Maybe Ed knew about it.
Maybe I knew this was coming.
Oh, and I didn't. At all.
This show is so humble. I love it.
Yes.
We set him up.
I'm so proud.
You totally
Well, congratulations,
He's
Ed.
a good sport. We did set him up. All right. We got a lot of news, though.
We do have a lot of news.
I can't bask in glory all day.
Well, we will find a sport that you can win, Pete. We'll keep trying.
We're going to keep working on it.
Yeah.
Someday we'll get there.
Send us, actually, friends@foxnews.com. What sport should we do next that you think Pete can win?
That I could actually win.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Not axe throwing.
All right. Well, yes, there is a lot of news to get to this morning. And the big news this weekend is the National Guard on the border, sealing up the southern border. That is exactly what the president tweeted. He said, "We are sealing up our southern border. The people of our great country want safety. They want security. The Dems have been a disaster on this very important issue."
President sees this as something to bring to the midterms. I mean, a lot of Democrats sort of rolled their eyes in 2016. This is not that big of an issue. Illegal immigration, it's being exaggerated by the president as a candidate, and yet he wrote it to victory in part. He talked about the economy, trade, a whole bunch of other issues. And I think there are Republicans who believe that with this being an uphill year for them in the midterms, that this issue of immigration may be something, along with the tax cut, that can help them.
Well, it's a defining issue. It's an issue that draws a contrast because they feel like Democrats have invested in the open borders, the sanctuary state narrative. And if not every Democrat, then the National Democratic Party, especially those in California, we're going to have some of the architects of the sanctuary state policy on the show today to challenge them on that very view. But President Trump views this as a national security issue. I mean, this is ultimately... I mean, it almost feels like too much, but it isn't. It's an invasion of illegal immigrants. And it's random immigration versus merit-based or skilled-based or orderly-based. I mean, we have jobs that need to be filled in this country. Let's be strategic about how we fill them, as opposed to who can run across the border and then a chain migration process that brings their family as well. That's a very legitimate policy debate to be had. He's saying if Congress won't do it with a wall, then I'm going to send the troops down there and do something about it. And I think voters on a lot of levels will respond to that.
And most importantly, how do we help the Border Patrol do their job best?
Sure.
You know, they're the ones on the front lines. They see what's going on every single day. And as we talked about yesterday, there seems to be at times a disconnect between what they're doing and how the Americans feel about what's going on and what they actually know the reality is. So
the difference between perception and policy.
and politics. So Brandon Judd, who we've had on our show as well, he's president of the National Border Patrol Council. He says this should not be a political issue. This is about the safety of this country. Here he was last night on Watters World.
I have to applaud President Trump for putting the National Guard on the border because that allows us to go after what the actual problem is, which are the criminal cartels. You see the left politicizing this issue all the time. we want to stop talking about this issue. We don't want this to be a 2020 debate. We want to once and for all secure the border so that we don't have to continue to sit here and say, well, we need this or we need that. We know what we need. Give us what we need. Let's get the Republicans behind this president. Give him what he needs. We will secure the border, and it's over.
I mean, I mentioned the politics.
It's a refreshing message
Sure.
because in order to get this right, for us to really make some moves on immigration, you've got to have Democrats and Republicans come together. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if you can actually be effective if the Democrats aren't willing to come to the table as well. But I think for the better of this country, I wish that they would.
You want to have it, I like the point he made, you want to have it over. The point is to solve the problem. And part of that problem is dealing with the DACA recipients. But you also have to seal the border or you're going to come back to the problem again. And you wonder whether Democrats want to solve it because there's a political incentive to not solving it.
Right, because we've sent National Guard troops in the Obama and Bush administrations to the border, and we're still where we are now. So we've got to move on to a whole bunch of other issues.
The president, he tweeted about the border yesterday, but also tweeting about what's going on with the FBI and the DOJ and how many Republicans on the Hill feel there's a lack of transparency and a lack of speed. Here's what he tweeted yesterday. He said lawmakers of the House Judiciary Committee are angrily accusing the Department of Justice of missing the Thursday deadline for turning over unredacted documents related to FISA abuse, FBI, Comey, Lynch, McCabe, Clinton emails, and much more. Slow walking. What is going on bad? What does the Department of Justice and FBI have to hide? Why aren't they giving the strongly requested documents unredacted to the House Judiciary Committee? Stalling. But for what reason? Not looking good. So there are a few different things going on here, Ed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's talking specifically about Bob Goodlatte, the chairman, the Republican chair of the House Judiciary Committee. He issued a subpoena, I believe, on March 22nd for a lot of these documents about the Clinton investigation. What did the FBI know? What did the Obama Justice Department know? And I think the public is demanding this information, some transparency.
Yes. He's saying there's 1.2 million documents that they should get from the FBI. They've only so far gotten 3,000. The deadline was Thursday at noon. I guess they are still obviously waiting.
And people
for
at the Justice Department are telling us, look, they are working around the clock to get some of these documents out, and we're supposed to get thousands of pages, maybe up to 1 million pages this coming week. And so under pressure from the president and others, we may actually start getting some.
And they're reading through them to redact what they find could be some sensitive information.
That's right. I think under the previous administration, there was real obstruction. There was resistance to releasing this information because politically they were worried about what it might look like. Under this administration, you get a sense talking, as you said, political appointees and others at the Justice Department, they want to release it. It takes time. You got to have manpower. You got to look through it all. You have to redact things that are proper. But I also love the fact that Congress is finally asserting their power as a co-equal branch. I mean, they have the oversight power of these. So much happened in these departments that shouldn't have politically. And I hope that more is produced and more quickly. So I love the fact that.
So Goodlatte's asking for information on the Clinton investigation, also firings at the FBI. But then there's another one under Devin Nunes and the Intelligence
He wants
Committee.
information.
And he wants information on FISA warrant surveillance that they got
and how much
for
was
Carter
the
Page, right?
anti-Trump dossier used to get that surveillance of Carter Page, a former Trump advisor, being spied on basically by the Obama administration. And so we're going to have Devin Nunes on the program here next hour. And he's going to tell us what he thinks about what the Justice Department has turned over, what they haven't turned over, what he still wants to see.
I think the big question there is, did they have good enough evidence to get surveillance on Carter Page?
Yeah, so let's
look into that.
We want to see the actual application. And now members of Congress, other than just the committee, are going to be able to see it, thanks to the Justice Department allowing a broader view, which is all we can ask for more than that, but it's a good start.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. We've got a lot going on this morning and some headlines I do want to bring you, starting with a Fox News alert. And this happened last night. One person is dead and 6 firefighters hurt after a fire rips through Trump Tower right here in New York City. You can see the flames there shooting out from an apartment on the 50th floor. Art dealer Todd Brasner pulled out of the home and unfortunately later died. It is unclear what sparked that fire. No members of the first family were there at the time. President Trump tweeting about the blaze and thanking the firefighters for a great job. Also this morning, the U.S. demanding Russia end its support for the Syrian regime after one of the worst chemical attacks in history. Heartbreaking pictures showing children gasping for air in the attack that killed at least 70. More than 500 others were injured. A rebel group accused the Assad regime of dropping barrel bombs packed with poison in the city of Douma. The government denies any involvement. This, of course, comes after last year's Sarin massacre, which prompted the Trump administration's airstrikes against the Syrian airbase. Also, a top lawmaker questioning our military following the fourth crash this week. Chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Mac Thornberry, calling Friday's deadly helicopter crash heartbreaking, saying in a statement in part, the readiness of our military is at a crisis point. 2 soldiers killed when their Apache went down during training at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. In all, 7 service members died in crashes this week. And a Sunday showdown taking shape at the Masters, not here in the Plaza, but the actual Masters. Patrick Reed holding his lead, entering the final round.
How about Patrick Reed?
27-year-old American now at 14 under par and a 3-shot lead over Rory McIlroy. He and a handful of others hoping to make a late charge in today's 4th and final round.
Yeah. Watch Rory McIlroy. He's close enough that he can make a run.
I thought you were on Team Reed. Come out of nowhere.
I like him. I'm just saying.
Kind of like you, Ed.
Is good.
Not the one you expect always.
Everyone expected Pete to win. My buddy Danny Quigley.
They saw the putt that I did right here, which I nailed it from about 10 feet. I felt
you
like
gotta
I was
do it in the game.
Spot.
You can't just do it in practice. We're talking about practice.
So you're saying I'm a gamer.
My buddy Dana Quigley just texted me, the only guy who looked better in a green jacket was Arnie. I don't think that's true. But anyway, what happened on the tarmac? Loretta Lynch set to speak
I got to put up with it all morning.
That infamous meeting with Bill Clinton. We talked about it yesterday. We've got new information today. Tom Fitton has been on this case for years. He'll tell us what he wants to hear from this interview tomorrow.
Plus, couples argue all the time about doing chores, of course, but which one is most likely to ruin your relationship?
That's a great question.
A very important question. Dishes? Results are in. Who's taking the garbage out? Is that the one? I don't know. We'll see.
You crossed the line too many times. I'm gonna put you in your place. You play with dynamite, don't be.
I'm not picking on the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, who I like very much, but her meeting with President Clinton on that airplane was the capper for me. And I then said, you know what? The department cannot, by itself, credibly end this.
It was enough to raise suspicion for then FBI Director James Comey, and now former Attorney General Loretta Lynch is ready to address what happened during that tarmac meeting. Judicial Watch has been demanding to know since 2016. So what is it that their president is expecting Lynch to say? Tom Fitton is here live now. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
So what do you want to know? Because as we all remember, this happened in the heat of the 2016 campaign, and Loretta Lynch oversees the FBI, among other key agencies, and they're investigating Hillary Clinton, and her husband, the former president, decides to jump on the same airplane. They just happen to be on the same tarmac in Phoenix, and they allegedly talked about golf and grandkids.
And it was just a few days before Hillary Clinton was supposedly to be interviewed, if you want to call it an interview, by the FBI and Justice Department attorneys. And Loretta Lynch admitted it cast a cloud over the investigation. We still don't have a full explanation from either her or Bill Clinton about what went on. Now, James Comey's book is coming out, so I'm sure she's trying to get ahead of that. James Comey is great at pointing fingers at others for misconduct. And the Justice Department was a mess under Loretta Lynch. This meeting was an indication or an example of the way it bent over backwards, both in appearance and in fact, on behalf of Hillary Clinton and the Clinton regime, while at the same time, remember, this is around the same time they were beginning the targeting of Donald Trump.
Right.
So Loretta Lynch has a lot of questions to be asked, not only on the meeting, but on the FISAs as well.
So a lot to unpack there. Let's start with the Clinton investigation, then we'll quickly get to FISA. So on the Clinton investigation, what would be, you mentioned that James Comey's about to come out on the book tour. He's going to tell his side of the story. He may say, I felt pressure from Loretta Lynch to shut this thing down. What would be the stakes? Maybe that Bill Clinton, it turns out, didn't just talk about grandkids, might have raised something about the investigation and whether it could go away for Hillary Clinton?
You know, the fact the meeting took place shows you, told Loretta Lynch that the Clintons were in control. And secondly, were there discussions of job offers? Was there an offer to make Loretta Lynch Attorney General or keep her as Attorney General? Was there an offer for a Supreme Court slot or something like that? We don't know. You don't talk about grandkids for 20 minutes. Even those who have grandkids know, in a business situation, it's rare to go on for more than 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
I just don't believe the initial explanation. And Ed, we have the talking points. The problem is they've been redacted by this Justice Department. More of the same in terms of cover-up, in terms of what went on during the Obama administration about these corruption
scandals.
Tell us about the talking points. Not just Congress.
Are these talking points after the meeting that were prepared for Loretta Lynch? What are the talking points you refer to?
Paragraph after paragraph of talking points prepared by their press people, and it looks like Loretta Lynch may have received a copy of them with talking points right after the meeting. And of course, you know, the FBI had documents. We had the force out of them. They lied about having documents. And they still have documents they want to give us. It's still cover-up mode on this meeting, which is very interesting. Why?
When you look at African American unemployment, you got to say something is going right.
Something is going right. We'll break down the economy and more with Charles Payne coming up. Plus, what will our National Guard troops be doing once they actually get to the border? The man who oversaw the Bush-era deployment is here with some insight next. Back with a green jacket edition of the headlines. President Trump coming to his EPA Chief Scott Pruitt's defense, saying he's doing a, quote, great job. The president said in a tweet, while security spending was somewhat more than his predecessor, Scott Pruitt has received death threats because of his bold actions. Record clean air and water while saving the USA billions of dollars. Meanwhile, Florida Governor Rick Scott expected to throw his hat in the political ring for U.S. Senate tomorrow. The Republican would be taking on three-term Democratic Senator Bill Nelson, which will help determine whether the Republicans maintain control of that chamber at the end of this year. Big deal. Pete?
Thanks, Ed. Well, the National Guard deploying to the southern border with Defense Secretary Jim Mattis signing off on orders to send up to 4,000 troops.
And despite backlash in the media, Trump isn't the first president to do this. In fact, Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama both did very similar things.
Here with insight on what the troops will be doing once they get there, retired Lieutenant General Stephen Blum, who oversaw President George W. Bush's border deployment as the National Guard chief. General, thank you for joining us this morning. Incredible insight you can provide for us. We're hearing about troops going to the border. You were a part of that deployment originally. Tell us what will these troops actually be doing once they get to the southern border?
That's a very good question. We really don't have the specifics of that right now in the current plan, but my assumption would be that we would do something very similar that was highly successful in 2006. We sent troops, National Guard, both Air Guard, Air Force, and Army National Guard to the border to perform the following missions. And basically, they did everything for the Border Patrol that the Border Patrol had to do without doing the actual core mission of the Border Patrol, which was interdicting immigrants, illegal immigrants coming across our border or criminal activity coming across our border. So what these things were basically engineering. They built roads, they improved roads, they actually built some of the wall and fencing and barriers that are still in place down there. They repaired ones that were in disrepair. They provided the eyes and ears for the Border Patrol and expanded their capacity and their capability to be able to see the border. You know, the border down on the southwest border of the United States is almost 2,000 miles long, and it's very, very different along that 2,000 miles. So being able to get additional eyes, and then when I say eyes, I'm talking about aerial observation, aviation, unmanned aviation, those type of things, and technological devices that Pete's very familiar with that we used overseas in our missions overseas. It gives you great ability to see what's happening in your sector. In addition, we provided logistics support, maintenance support, medical support, because the people that come over our border sometimes are in desperate straits when they get there and often need medical care. Plus, we had to take care of the soldiers that were on the border in many of these remote locations. So all of those all of those things to include aviation, which gives the Border Patrol much increased mobility, gives them a ability to actually do more with the same number of Border Patrol members that they have right now.
Yes, sir.
So you say if this is done right, this could be a brilliant idea. We've also heard that the troops will not be armed. Can you clear that up? Will they be armed? And how can this be done right?
That's not for me to say, but my recommendation is that they would be armed. They've been armed in every other event before this on the border. You have to remember, you're putting young men and women in harm's way when you put them in the border. They're in remote locations, and there's lots of cartel and coyote activity, and they are heavily armed, and you don't want our soldiers down there unable to defend themselves if they are in a compromising position. However, that decision will be made by the National Command Authority and the 4 governors, the 4 U.S. governors that are affected.
Boy, General, it seems like common sense that guys would be armed to defend themselves, but ultimately they're filling in the gaps that currently exist. Are you confident that by adding these National Guard members at this moment, the border can be sealed until the wall is built?
Pete, you know well the capabilities of the National Guard. I was the chief when you were in Gitmo in Iraq, sent there with the Army. These are superb citizen soldiers. They have all of the skills, training, and discipline of our best units in the United States Army and Air Force. The only difference is that they come with civilian acquired skills and life experience that even our great active duty soldiers don't have. So they're able to deal with the interagency and the intergovernment nuances of this kind of a mission very, very well. This is a brilliant idea to use the Guard. If we didn't have a Guard, this nation would have to invent the National Guard today. It is precisely the secret sauce that delivers the unity of effort between the locals, the state, the federal governments of both the United States and Mexico. And Mexico views the Guard quite differently than it does federal troops. Federal troops sends a very different message to on the south side of the border than what isn't maybe intended. By putting the Guard down there, the 6 states, the northern border states of Mexico and the 4 United States that border our Mexican border work together routinely. They see the Guard all the time training and exercising with them, so they don't view it as a threat. The only people that view this as a threat are the coyotes and the cartels.
Well,
and just the presence of the Guard there is a huge deterrent.
It's a great perspective. It was wonderful having you on, Lieutenant Colonel. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, sir.
Lieutenant
Appreciate
General.
it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You got it. Well, the media melting down over the stock market, blaming it all, of course, on the president.
Trump doubling down on his threatened tariffs against China, helping to send the Dow down nearly 600 points.
Shake-up in the market, some calling it a Trump drop.
Our own Charles Payne here with a reality check. There he is next.
And a politically incorrect sheriff going viral with this not so welcome sign. That sheriff is joining us live.
Markets plummet, the worst beginning to April since the Great Depression. The reason, Trump's tariffs.
The Trump slump. The Dow takes a drastic drop as the threat of a trade war rises.
President Trump doubling down on his threatened tariffs against China, helping to send the Dow down nearly 600 points.
Shake-up in the market, some calling it a Trump drop.
If we do not pay close attention and try to find a way to ratchet this back, we're going to create a global recession, and that would be a terrible tragedy.
Trump slump. Trump drop. I don't remember them saying Trump rise, did
That's
they?
true.
Oh, okay.
Where was the inverse of that? Well,
I think we need Charles Payne for this, host of Making Money on Fox Business Network. Charles, I was going to have you.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. So was it the Trump bump and the Trump rise, or is it just now the Trump?
Even the Trump bump was a sort of a misnomer and disingenuous, because what happened in the first year of President Trump was much more than a quote-unquote bump. We had one of the best years ever for the stock market, including the lack of volatility. I'm telling you, it was bucolic. It was flowery. It was sunny every single day. We were up with no volatility. Guess what? Volatility has come back, but we are up significantly since January of last year. And even Wednesday, when the market was down, out. Some of those clips from Wednesday when we were down 600, we closed up that session. We had a 750-point reversal, a 1,000-point reversal in 2 days. So there's some other forces out there, obviously. The market's had a huge run. There's some anxiety over the trade confrontation that we're involved in right now. But there's a lot of things, too, that this week that were missed by, I'm not sure, missed by all the folks that you guys just showed there. For instance, we had all auto sales in. They came in at a million run rate better than Wall Street anticipated. We had earnings from Lennar, one of the biggest home builders in this country. The stock went up 10% in one day. Why? They say the spring selling season is going to be amazing. The only thing holding us back is a lack of workers. We had a report on Class 8 trucks, you know, those big ones, rev up the diesel. The third best number in history. And by the way, the first quarter, the best quarter in history. Companies don't buy those big diesel trucks, those big trucks, if they don't anticipate the economy doing great. So we had two things working this week in the market. You had headlines, hype, fear-mongering, and then you had facts that really weren't reported.
Does China concern you, though? Because you have a lot of farmers that are worried about the impact that might have. Your markets guy, are you worried about it?
I'm worried about near term. I'm excited about long term. I'm excited about the opportunity. Hey, we got farmers. They buy soybeans because they need soybeans from farmers, right? They buy airplanes from Boeing because Boeing makes the best airplanes. Yes. But guess what? We don't want them stealing from us. It is so dumb to accept this relationship the way it stands right now. By the way, there's no such thing as Trump starting a trade war. We're in one. We've been losing one. And anyone that says using tariffs starts a trade war, then guess what? We're in one.
Yeah.
China has tariffs. We have tariffs. By the way, their tariffs are significantly higher than ours. The barrier to get into their country to sell them goods, significantly more expensive, and then they rip you off. They make you build factories there.
State-owned businesses, state-subsidized businesses.
They steal your technology. They steal your intellectual property. It's one of these things, if you don't draw a line in the sand, and then it's going to get worse, and it's going to be harder in the
future. I want to get your reaction to Bob Johnson, the BET founder, said this about the Trump economy. Watch this.
You have to take encouragement from what's happening in the labor force and the job market. When you look at African American unemployment, in over 50 years since the Bureau of Labor Statistics has been keeping the numbers, you've never had two things: African American unemployment this low, and the spread between unemployment among whites and African Americans narrowing. That absolutely means that the job market is soliciting employees who have been out of the labor force, some of it just based on discrimination, some of it based on changes in education access and technology changing. And so when you look at that, you got to say something is going right.
Something is going right. You don't hear people saying that often.
Right, but the numbers say it. And even this last month, we saw the second lowest unemployment rate for black Americans in history. Also, the quality of jobs. One thing that's going on in this jobs market, goods producing jobs, manufacturing, construction. I just talked about home builders. Those are jobs that black folks are getting, Hispanic folks are getting, and they pay more. They pay more than some of the jobs that were being created during the Great Recession.
Will the president get credit for that?
I don't think so. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think people, though, are going to feel better about themselves. We already see it in a whole lot of different surveys.
That's what matters.
And the most important thing is that the average American out there feels better about their individual opportunities and takes advantage of it.
All right. Charles.
All right. You got it.
Always good to see you.
Thanks. You too.
Happy Sunday.
Thanks, Charles.
All right. I do want to bring you some other headlines that we are following this morning. Tributes and donations pouring in for the Canadian hockey team involved in that deadly crash. A GoFundMe page raising nearly $3 million in just one day. Wow. NHL teams honoring the Humboldt Broncos by wearing helmets and observing moments of silence. 15 killed, including 11 players, 2 coaches when their bus collided with a semi-truck on the way to a game. Among the dead, the team's head coach and captain. And a powerful picture on social media of surviving teammates locking hands in the hospital. You can see there President Trump tweeting his condolences after calling Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Such a heartbreaking story that was. And a home explodes and bursts into flames when an out-of-control car drives right through it. The incredible moment of impact caught on camera outside Fort Worth, Texas. Firefighters say the driver's brakes failed, sending him crashing into the home's gas line. 3 people inside the home and 2 police officers rushed to the hospital. The driver does not have a license and is now under arrest. Also, a new study revealing the one chore that's most likely to ruin a relationship.
No, that's not what I want.
You just said that you want me to help you do the dishes.
I want you to want to do the dishes.
Why would I want to do dishes? Why?
See, that's my whole point.
Such a great movie. Well, according to the Council of Contemporary Families, women who say they do all of the I was saying this earlier, all of the dishwashing are most unhappy in their relationship. I do love my husband, though. Compared to any other household chore, researchers say it's because dirty dishes can be a constant problem. So what do you think? You want to email us, friends@foxnews.com. What is the chore that you hate doing that could impact your relationship in a negative
Why
way?
would I want to do the dishes? Is the truest statement ever said.
Why do women want to do the dishes?
Why does anyone want to? It's a fair point.
Isn't there an easy? There's a thing called a dishwasher, and the guy
I
should
know,
put
but
the stuff in there.
There's
and
so
not
many layers between that. Do you rinse off your dish? Do you just throw it in the sink? Do you put
Depends
it in
how
soapy
much food's
water?
on
What
there.
do you do? You know, Rick.
I
mean,
hate
come
the
on.
dishwasher.
You hate the dishwasher?
I hate the dishwasher.
Why?
Because you put the food in there, or the dishes in there, and then you have to take them out, and then you don't. You just take out like one. Like that one dish you need.
So is it
the whole thing.
You're more just a lazy
And then you're like, wait, now I have this one dirty dish, and I'm in a place to put it, so I put it back in with the clean dishes and wash the whole thing again.
That's
the
just
dishwasher
dysfunction, Rick.
even is totally.
This is a whole other issue.
Seriously lazy. All right. Hey, look at that. Maps just appeared there. I disappeared, but the maps appeared. That was a nice little trick. And I don't see the maps. You guys. Oh, there we go. Now everybody's back except for me. All right. Here's your current temperatures. It's really cold. Take a look at that. It is 0 in International Falls. It's April what? 8th?
April 8th.
There you go. Wind chill feels like 2 in Fargo, 15 in Aberdeen, 25 in Omaha. Go all the way down towards Texas right now, and we've got temperatures 36 in Dallas, 43 in San Antonio, 50 in New Orleans. Basically, you get the idea. Nobody is really feeling good, at least spring-like across parts of the east. Here you go. Things are going to change this week, though. We have one storm system that we had yesterday across California. That now is diving in towards the Central Plains. Take a look at this. More snow down across parts of Oklahoma. We had that yesterday morning as well. Now another batch moving through, and then out across the east where we had all the big rain yesterday. That's mostly gone. Florida, you're still going to see some scattered showers. Watch what happens temperature-wise. Today it's cold. Tomorrow, still cold. Tuesday starts to get better. Wednesday, 73 in Kansas City, and there you go. By Thursday, guys, a bit of a break for almost everybody, but we got to get all the way till Thursday.
Rick, I'm still hung up that you wash an entire set of dishes.
This is why I
just
try
for
not
one
to use the
dish.
dishwasher
You know what
at
I
all,
think we should
because it
do?
ends up being a bad.
We should have a
bad
Fox
combo.
and Friends weekend party at Rick's place, and I'll eat on his dishes and then individually put them in the dishwasher.
Or if we just take all the dishes out from that when you set the table from
Nice to
the
do.
dishwasher, then it works.
Love it.
We'll
Thank
try
you.
to settle this
Thank you
next
very
time.
much. Appreciate it. Well, as we often do, now turn to a tough story here on Fox and Friends. 2 American soldiers, killed in a helicopter training crash, the 4th accident in just the last week. 7 service members have died this week. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Walls says we're not ready for war. Serious topic, and he joins us about it next.
Wow. Plus, Mark Zuckerberg set to testify this week about Facebook's data problems. And we may have gotten a preview courtesy of, yes, Saturday Night Live.
America, look me in my shark eyes when I say this, that on behalf of everyone at Facebook, I'm sorry. On opposite day,
Welcome back. Well, 2 soldiers were killed Friday in a crash while training aboard an Apache helicopter at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the 101st Airborne. The incident marking the 4th military crash just this week alone, bringing the total number of servicemen dead in crashes to 7 in just a week. Here to weigh in, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Michael Walls, and he is currently running for Congress in Florida. Colonel, thanks for joining us this morning. So, hey, 1 time, 2 times, 4 times becomes a trend. Why are we seeing these types of accidents within our military?
Well, just to be blunt, our military, and particularly our aviation fleet, is flat worn out after 17 years of continuous war, and particularly after 8 years of budget cuts under President Obama. The head of the Marine Corps recently testified that 1/3 of their Stallion fleet, their heavy lift helicopters, only 1/3 are able to fly. So 2/3 are grounded. And, how is this affecting strategic operations? Well, recently when we put 3 aircraft carriers off the coast of North Korea, Korea as a show of force to Kim Jong-un, the Navy had to essentially gut the rest of its aviation fleet just to be able to fully staff with aircraft 3 of our 12 aircraft carriers.
So training is, of course, as you know better than anybody else, preparation for the actual thing. But if you're not able to have the flight hours and the maintenance or the equipment proper, you're in serious trouble. So how far behind are we on this, and how do we provide a safe environment for those training, and be prepared for war?
Well, this is why, the budget that President Trump recently signed, the omnibus budget, was so critical. $700 billion for the military for this year, $716 for next year. A lot of folks were upset with the president for what the Democrats were able to get included on the domestic front, but he knew that these monies were essential for what the military calls readiness for our military to essentially be able to buy the parts, to refit the aircraft, and then to be able to modernize the fleet and to be able to put research and development in for new types of equipment and aircraft, so that we can handle everything from North Korea to China to resurgent Russia and the global war on terrorism that is, I argue, and others, a generational war.
You're right. I mean, ultimately, as tough as that budget vote may have been, investment in our military necessary in light of these things. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Walsh, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much.
And your service to this great country. We got to have our warfighters getting the best, no doubt about that. Well, the DOJ says it will make extraordinary accommodations for Congress to view documents related to the FISA scandal. Well, as President Trump rails against the agency for delays. House Intel Chair Devin Nunes here to react live next hour. And a politically incorrect sheriff going viral with this not so welcome sign. I like my welcome signs not so welcome. That sheriff joins us live next.